I lied about my pregnancy and now he says he won't marry me. I, 26F, am a white American engaged to an Indian man, 32M. I met my fiancé 2 years ago and we started dating privately as I wanted to protect him from my family. My dad, 66M, is a sporty and loving guy whom I've always had a close relationship with. On the other hand, my mother, 50F, and I have always had a turbulent relationship. I've always felt her pressure me to achieve academic success. I also related closely to the almond mom stereotype. All my life, she has insisted I try different diets, which pushed us apart. I moved out of the house at 19, and we got along a bit better for a while. However, when I was 21 years old, she started to nag about grandchildren. She has explicitly described her dream about my future family. Around that time, I also realized how racist she is. Clearly, her vision for her son-in-law is a blue-eyed Aryan or something like that. Only men with paper-like skin color seem to be good enough for continuing her bloodline. This is why I wanted to keep my fiancé a secret. Recently, my mother started to send me lists of adorable baby names, reminding me of the fact that I'm not enough for her. Understandably, my fiancé wasn't pleased that I couldn't introduce him to my family, as he had done with his. I tried to explain that my mother wouldn't approve of him because of his skin color, but he insisted we'd go for at least a small visit. After weeks of fighting, I finally gave in and decided to go see my parents at a restaurant. We met them yesterday. As soon as my mother laid eyes on my fiancé, she visibly tensed up. She was not prepared to see a brown man, as I had only mentioned his American-sounding name earlier. During dinner, she was blabbering nonsense about stuff she doesn't normally talk about and looked uncomfortable. She ordered only an appetizer for herself and just poked it while staring at her napkin. The irritation of all those years started to build up inside me as I watched her efficiently ignore my fiancé and talk about the weather for the whole dinner. I thought to myself disdainfully, why isn't she asking about the grandchildren? So, in the heat of the moment, I burst out with, "We're pregnant." She just sat in silence for a long time and looked at me. Finally, my dad stood up and basically dragged her out, saying they'd better get going. Upon leaving, he whispered, "Congratulations." After they left, my fiancé looked bewildered and asked what I was talking about. In actuality, I'm not pregnant and wasn't planning on getting in the near future. He was furious that I'd lied to him and my parents, although I tried to explain all the racism, microaggressions, and other things from my childhood that made me blow up like that. He replied saying that he didn't notice any of that during the dinner and said that I can't define racism for him. To me, my mom's behavior was clearly caused by my fiancé's looks, but he can't understand this. After that, we haven't talked. My girlfriend almost killed herself because of me. I feel awful. I, 18F, have been dating Riri, 18F, for around 6 months. Since I first met her, I immediately knew she was in a dark place. For some context, she lives in an abusive household and has to deal with a 30-year disabled brother who often walks around the house naked, even touching himself. Her mother is a narcissist, unable to feel any empathy, as I've noticed. Her older sister, Pearl, 22, is a victim as well, but due to her anger issues has treated my girlfriend like trash more than one time. Her dad is a prick as well. All of these things have gave her depression and anxiety, as well as horrible habits such as self-harm, self-hate, panic attacks, constantly blaming herself for everything, etc. The first months of our relationship, I did something I pretty much regret. Everything she said, I would agree with. I treated her like she was right all the time because I thought that would be the best thing to do, considering she gets the opposite from her family. I put her first, always. I had sleepless nights in order to prevent her from self-harming, which I have failed to do many times, unfortunately. She has always been grateful for everything I did, but lately I've realized that my own mental health was not that good as I've thought. Something she did, which I won't elaborate, caused a lot of harm on me, which made me reevaluate a lot of stuff. After that incident, I've been telling Riri about all the things that have been hurting me about her attitude. Keep in mind that I would never ask her to change her personality. It's her attitude that bothers me. I went soft with her, talked peacefully, spoke words of affirmation, etc. None of that seemed to work as she stated that I was treating her wrongly, being mean, claiming that she was a terrible GF, etc. In her sister's words, "She's so deep inside this depression hole that instead of wanting to keep strong in order to get out, she is pushing you inside." I have realized that she was being unreasonable most of the times I opened up about what's on my mind. Instead of comforting me, she would call herself horrible names and even harm her own body. This caused me to stop talking about the issues I had, which gave me a lot of physical problems, mostly stomach aches. She got me to open up once again, then proceeded to feel guilty and unworthy again. This cycle kept repeating. Yesterday, she once again messed up big time. I was devastated and asked her to please give me some time to myself. I would still text her during the day, but I wanted time to calm myself down before I say something I regret. I also told her something that was on my mind for a long time. She has a victim mentality. Instead of acknowledging her mistakes like a normal person, she would blame herself so much that she ends up making me regret telling her what was hurting me in the first place. We barely talked through the day, but I made sure to let her know that I still love her. It's just that I wanted to think about what has been going on lately. I went to sleep at 1:30 a.m. of today, wishing her a good night, telling her that I love her, etc., the usual. I woke up at 9:30 and my heart sunk when I picked my phone. She tried to overdose with sleeping pills at around 3:30 and was now at the hospital. I kept in contact with her sister and mom, who assured me she was fine and stable. She got discharged at around 10:30, which she shouldn't have been, since she needed to stay in a mental hospital, which her mom refused and took her home instead. As soon as my girlfriend texted me, she started indirectly blaming me for what happened. I was shocked. She insisted that I treated her wrongly, pressured her into changing too fast, claimed that she was a terrible girlfriend in person, and failed to feel loved and cared for. I actually cannot believe she's blaming me. I feel like a complete piece of trash right now. I always exposed what hurts me in a soft way, taking time to explain her everything and letting her ask questions in order to stop overthinking or getting a wrong idea on her mind. My own mom feels terrible for me as she said I've gotten myself into a terrible situation which is not my fault. Now, my sister-in-law and I are trying to get her into a mental hospital, behind my mother-in-law's back, of course.
My boss tried to sleep with my fiancée, so I got revenge. This was several years ago, so my boss, an extreme type A personality, found out I was seeing a young lady at another one of our offices. It was a long-distance relationship. He was the type he liked to control everything and mess with people for fun. He was also married to another employee, but he was very unfaithful. And he had a hobby, photography. He liked to take pics of himself and his conquest in the act. Then he would show the pics around the production floor and brag about it. Well, on his next trip to this other office, he tried to get my girlfriend to sleep with him, but she spurned him. He made up some lies and got her fired. It took a long time, but I was patient. I knew he kept the photos in his office. He could not risk keeping them at home where his wife might stumble upon them. One Saturday I was working OT and the cleaning lady came through. They unlocked his office. I came in acting like I was taking dimensions on some drawings. The lady just asked me to close the door when I was finished. She left and went down toward accounting. That's when I went through his desk. Sure enough, in the back of one drawer, I found a stack of photos 4 tall. I took them all. Then I waited until he went on another trip. When he did, I went out for lunch. I had a dozen pics of him in the act with 4 different women, all showing his face. The women all had dark or red hair. His wife is a blonde. I drove to the town he lived in, to the closest post office to his house, and mailed the pics to his wife with no return address. She divorced him, and her lawyer took him to the cleaners. My girlfriend is now my wife, and we aren't mad anymore.